by avoiding anything, you're telling your brain that it is still dangerous, and you're causing your brain to perceive this thing as dangerous when you think about it or when you observe it, right? So yes, are certain things threatening to your health when you have a chronic illness? Yes, they are. Certain things, for example, like foods, certain foods, mold, electromagnetic frequencies, stressful thoughts, things like that. But simply avoiding all of these things is not the solution. It may be temporarily necessary, right? But once you're trying to go ahead and get healthy again, you're not going to get healthy from avoidance, okay? You have to be able to change your relationship with these things entirely to be able to go ahead and overcome them, right? So let me give you an example with food. I'll go through each of them. So food, right? If you had an intolerance to certain foods in the past, okay, you don't want to completely avoid it forever. You want to give yourself a break, usually 3 months, unless it's gluten, and then for gluten it could be longer than that. But let's say you avoid it for a few months, and then when you add it back in, you add it back in a small amount infrequently, okay? Hey, I'm avoiding nuts, right? When I add them back in, I add a couple nuts in a couple times a week, okay? Then next week I go a few nuts, then so on, till I eventually get to a point where I'm doing a handful of nuts a couple times a week. Guess what? Now you have changed your relationship with nuts. They're not affecting your health like they were before because you've gradually exposed yourself to them, and now you're not eating them frequently enough to cause an issue, right? So this is how you change your relationship with something. You have used gradient exposure to gradually increase your exposure to this thing to allow your nervous system and body to not be shocked by it, okay? So next example would be mold, right? So obviously you want to do your best to avoid mold temporarily when you're in the middle of a flare, right? But it's not so much about avoiding mold as much as it is about getting into an environment that doesn't have toxic mold, right? So you get into an environment that works for you and you realize, hey, it's okay for me to be around mold. I'm safe around mold. I just can't be around water damage molds and black mold, Most people can't either. They just don't realize that their symptoms are being caused by it, right? So you've changed your relationship with mold. Now mold is not threatening in itself. It's just that certain molds you have to be observant of, and symptoms that you may present themselves if you're in certain environments, right? Because of, this is called awareness, different than avoidance, right? Next thing, electromagnetic frequencies, right? So if you're avoiding EMS, for example, then the idea is you want to gradually, as you avoid them long enough, then you want to gradually increase your exposure over time, very slowly, and to a point, whatever point's comfortable for you, and you keep moving up slowly. And you don't want to believe that EMF itself is going to harm you. You just want to gradually increase your tolerance slowly so you're not shocking your body. You're increasing exposure through gradient exposure. So this is, the last one was certain thoughts, right? You don't want to avoid certain thoughts because by avoiding them, you keep telling your nervous system, uh-oh, this thought is not, I can't deal with this thought. This is too much for me to handle. I don't know what to do. This is a threatening thought. If it wasn't a threatening thought, you deal with it right in the moment, right then. But by avoiding it over and over again, it becomes more and more heavy. It weighs heavier and heavier every time that it comes in. So anytime you avoid anything, it's just going to keep getting heavier and heavier and heavier because by avoiding it, you're reinforcing the danger or the perception of danger around this thing. But if you have certain things that cause you harm, you have to be aware that, hey, listen, there may need to be some temporary avoidance, but at some point you got to reintroduce these things very slowly and gradient exposure as slowly as you feel safe and comfortable so that you could change your relationship with them. Because if you don't change your relationship with them, you will continue to observe them all your life and feel threatened because you have not gone through that gradient exposure process. And if there's a certain amount that feels comfortable of this thing, then just stay in that range. You shouldn't be eating nuts every single day if you had an issue with nuts in the past. If you had, EMF sensitivity in the past, you wouldn't be, on the cell phone for 12 hours a day, calling people and on the computer for the rest of the night, It's pretty common sense. There's got to be a certain balance, but you can't avoid it completely, right? You have to figure out what level works for you and then not be concerned about it, not be threatened by it, okay? Just realize that you're safe around it. You're safe around these things, okay? And the only way you're going to feel safe is by changing your relationship and your association with these things. Thanks for watching. Go to my website, endsickness.org. I got hundreds of articles, hundreds of videos on there teaching you how to heal yourself. Take care.